Lovely ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Wallen, and I am here to help you understand what goes on in here and here. Today I want to talk to you about a new series that I have been writing and what I've learned from it. The new series is called Violent Delights, and I have been calling it Dexter Meets 50 Shades of Grey. It is a romance/thriller series. I'm not going to give away too much because the first book should be released, I think, sometime in October, and then the second in November, and the third one in December. And it will most likely continue on after that. Why? Because I have absolutely loved writing this series. So much more than I ever thought would happen. Because, I came from horror and other such genres and had always kind of looked at romance in a way that was not exactly positive. But has my mind ever been changed? I have really thoroughly enjoyed writing this series. And hopefully you'll enjoy reading it as much as I've enjoyed writing it. But that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about today are the exquisite things that I have learned while writing my first romance series. Now, I should preface this by saying that I have inserted romance into a lot of my stories. The Reaper series got all sorts of romance in it. We'll stick with that. But I have written plenty of romance into my stories. But this time around, it really is a romance with a big dash of thriller. So, here are the things that I have learned while writing romance. Number one, that sex can drive a story, but it can't be the story. This one is hotly debated. And not really debated, it's just discussed. Discussed, debated, you know what I'm talking about. The thing is that, it's just like in films. And you hear this complaint all the time, that they're gratuitous sex. That sex is just thrown in to sell a movie. And that happens a lot. And it happens a lot in books. But the truth is, if the sex is the story, it's porn. Plain and simple. And there are books out there that are straight up porn. It's called erotica. That's not what I'm writing. So if you have a romance novel and the sex is the story, it's erotica. If the sex enhances the story, it's probably a romance. There are shades of gray in there. Pun intended. But you know what I'm saying. Number two, this is related to number one. That love can drive a story, but it can't be the story. And I know this one's tricky because a lot of people that read romance read it because of the love. Okay, the love with a side of sex. But the thing is if love is the story, then it's not really a story. I mean, yes, you could have a story about a budding romance, and that's great, but there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else that drives the story. The thing is that, at least from my, and all of this, understand, this is all from my perspective, okay? That, to me, I'm going to use a metaphor here, but to me, love is like the icing on this already delicious cake. So the cake and its layers, if it's a multi-layered cake, is the story. And just like sex, love is the icing over that cake that makes it even more delicious and fattening and bad for you, but it's still super delicious. So if you're writing a romance, yes, there's going to be love. There has to be love. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a romance. And there probably has to be sex. Well, it doesn't have to be sex, but there's probably going to be sex. But those are not the driving force behind the story. Now, when I started writing Violent Delights, I knew what the story was going to be. Well, as far as I can know any story, because I come up with everything as I go. But effectively, I knew that I was going to have two couples. One couple, I'm going to give a little bit away here. One couple is a couple of serial killers, and the other couple is a pair of detectives. Both couples fall in love. Well, one more in lust and the other in love. So there's kind of a parallelism, a comparallelism, as it were. But the driving force behind the story is not their love. It's the detectives trying to catch the serial killers. That's the story. That's the meat of this series. The gravy, or the French fries, or whatever you want to put it, is the love and the sex. Yay! The third thing, and this one is really, it's important here. And I discovered it the other night when I was writing a particular chapter. Now, the chapter that I was writing previously, let me start off with that. I started writing this one chapter, and I got 3/4 of the way through with the chapter, and I realized that that chapter didn't do anything. Nothing at all. All of a sudden, I was just like, why is this even here? It doesn't serve a purpose. So I had to go back and rewrite it so it did serve a purpose. But then, the scene following that became something special. And what it taught me was that not every scene has to be thrilling. This is a romance. Sometimes you have to have a scene or a chapter that is about building these relationships, and it doesn't have to do anything. It can say something. It could speak to the heart of the characters. And sometimes to do that, you kind of have to step back and let those characters breathe and give those characters a moment to just enjoy their love. And those scenes, they may not be thrilling, but they can be very touching and very moving. You know, and the thing is since, I'm coming from the genres that I had been writing in, it always seemed like every scene had to it was almost, especially with horror, it was like every scene had to build on the previous one. And they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's not the case with romance. You can have a big scene and then a little scene and then a medium scene and another little scene. It's intimacy. You've got to allow for the intimacy. And I don't mean necessarily intimacy on a romantic or a sexual nature. I mean intimacy. And sometimes those intimate scenes really drag the reader in, or draw the reader in. It might drag them in too, but it draws them in and makes them love these characters even more. And it's a wonderful tool to use. The next thing that I learned, now this one is really important, is that objectification is insulting to the characters of the story and the readers. Now, I have been in a situation where I was objectified, and it is not comfortable. It is awful. And if you are writing a story that objectifies men or women, you're going to have a problem. So as you're writing these stories, treat these characters as if they're human beings, and that they have emotions and hearts and souls and minds, and that they matter. That one's really simple. And the next one is important to me, and that it's possible to write intelligent romance. So here's a little anecdote. When I sent the first book to my editor, one of the first things she said was, all of your characters are too intelligent. It's okay that your narration is your normal level of intelligence, but you got to dumb down some of these characters. I was like, okay, I get that. I understand that. I appreciate that. So I did. And there goes the AC. I love live recording. So the one thing you have to understand is that when you think about the romance genre, you might think of dumbed down fiction, and that is not the case. There's some very, very intelligent romance. And to me, it's absolutely thrilling to write an intelligent romance. And you in that realm, you can write intelligent characters. You can write intelligent dialogue, intelligent narration. Of course, at the same time, you have to make these characters real. And of course, in my world, if the world were mine to rule, everybody would be intelligent. But that's not the case. And I'm not saying that, I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying that not everybody is on the same level. But you can still write intelligent romance. And finally, and this one's exciting to me, is that thrillers and romance go hand in hand. Why do I say that? Well, if you think about it this way, that to the average romance reader, romance in and of itself is thrilling. And it really is. We've all fallen in love, right? I remember the first time I met my wife. It was thrilling, trust me. First time I laid eyes on her and I saw her smile, I was thrilled, especially when she agreed to go out with me. I mean, look at me. But at the same time, I mean, it's not necessarily about the thrilling roller coaster of romance, which is a big part of it, but it's also, you can take romance and thrillers, put them together, and they make a great story. They really do. And so many of the tropes and the ideas, they just merge seamlessly together. And the truth is that you could take romance and merge it with just about any kind of genre you want. Here's a good one. When I wrote Clockwork Cabaret and TikTok Girl, I knew that the two main characters were going to be madly in love with each other. And that is dealt with throughout both of those books. But it really is a steampunk thriller, kind of Cape Crusader kind of books with romance involved. Now, the romance isn't as central as is in Violent Delights, but when you add romance to another genre, it heightens it. It gives it a depth that it might not have had otherwise. And it's wonderful. And to put a cap on this, as I said, when I started writing this series, I wasn't sure what to expect. And by the time I got halfway through the first book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love writing in this genre. I love writing about love. I love writing about people being in love. It's wonderful. Now, of course, in this series, I've got people that are also dealing death, but, I had to drag that along with me because of everything else I've written. But here's what I'm getting at. Don't make assumptions about romance, because it is far more than you give it credit for. It can be deep. It can be intelligent. It can be exciting. It can be all things. But more than anything, it is something that we can all relate to, because chances are pretty good that everybody watching this has at one point in their life fallen in love. You might be in love right now. I hope you are, and I hope that love is requited. But you see what I mean? Romance is kind of a universal genre, because everybody knows what love feels like. And we all want to enjoy it and experience it. And there you go, the things that I have learned from writing my first romance series. Now, my plan is to let Violent Delights just keep on going, partially because I've enjoyed it so much. hopefully everybody else reading it will enjoy it. We'll know soon enough. Anyway, thank you so very much for taking the time to listen to me blather on and on and on. I greatly appreciate it. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe. And more importantly, share it. Let other people know. I'm not making any money off of this. I'm not trying to get you to give me money for this. It's just I have things I want to share with people. And hopefully what I'm sharing with you educates, enlightens, and entertains you. Anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful day.